Africa 54. We begin our broadcast in New York, where the war in Gaza returned to center stage at the United Nations General Assembly on Thursday with a speech from the Palestinian president. VOA's UN correspondent Margaret Bashir has more.
Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas received a show of support as he took the podium and spoke about the more than 41,000 Palestinians who have died in the past 11 months of Hamas-Israeli fighting.
Hundreds of Palestinian families have been annihilated. Entire family names have been wiped out of the civil record. More than 100 families have been completely wiped out of the civil record. They no longer exist. Thousands have died because of the spread of disease and epidemics and the shortages in medicine and water.
Abbas did not name Hamas, but he referred to the October 7 terror attacks, condemned the killing of all civilians, and called for the release of all detained persons, an indirect reference to the hostages taken from Israel. He called on the international community to act to end the war.
Stop this crime. Stop it now. Stop killing children and women. Stop the genocide. Stop sending weapons to Israel. This madness cannot continue.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will address the assembly on Friday after delaying his trip due to the military escalation with Hezbollah militants in Lebanon. American and French diplomats have proposed a temporary ceasefire to calm tensions after a wave of Israeli attacks and airstrikes on southern Lebanon and Hezbollah rockets launched at Israel.
War is not inevitable. A diplomatic solution is indeed possible. In recent days, we've worked with our American partners on a temporary ceasefire platform of 21 days to allow for negotiations.
In Haiti, gangs have been terrorizing the population, taking over parts of the capital and kidnapping, raping, and killing civilians. In June, Kenya deployed around 400 police as part of a multinational force to help quell the violence.
The national security forces, with the support of the mission, have already demonstrated tangible results on the ground, making it possible for the population, little by little, to see normal life restored. But a lot still remains to be done.
Kenyan President William Ruto said he would be sending another contingent to Haiti by January, and he urged more countries to support the mission with needed equipment and funding.
The progress so far in Haiti demonstrates that what was once deemed mission impossible is indeed a present and undeniable possibility.
The annual UN meetings always attract a wide variety of protesters. On Thursday, as the Palestinian president spoke, supporters gathered a few blocks from the UN headquarters to demand a ceasefire in Gaza.
For the latest on the UNGA, I'm joined live from New York by VOA UN correspondent Margaret Bashir. Margaret, the Israeli Prime Minister's address this morning elicited mixed reactions. What more can you share with us?
Yes, he's always a divisive figure here. He strode onto the stage and a number of delegations walked out of the room. There were boos, there were cheers. He often brings outside people to fill the gallery with, but I think other delegations also filled the gallery today, so it was a mixed reaction to him. A lot of tension in the room. He said, "We are winning in the war against Hamas, against Hezbollah and the Houthis in Yemen, and against Iran." And he issued a bit of a threat to Iran. He said, "If you strike us, we will strike you. There is no place that the long arm of Israel cannot reach." And he said, and that's true of the entire Middle East. He said that Hamas must go. He would not accept them in any kind of post-Gaza war governing situation. He said that would be like having the Nazis after World War II being part of the government in Germany. And turning to Lebanon, he said that of this escalation we've seen in the past week between Israel and Hezbollah militants there, that they are fighting them. They must also defeat them so that they can return about 60,000 Israeli citizens back to northern Israel. They've been under rocket attack from Hezbollah over the last 11 months. Hezbollah says that they're doing it in solidarity with Hamas and the Palestinians. However, there's been a major escalation in the last hour. The Israeli Air Force has bombed several sites in the southern suburbs of Beirut that they say is the headquarters of Hezbollah. Lots of fire and smoke we're seeing on pictures coming in from Beirut. Don't know yet the casualty toll, but it's major explosions. So this hope for a 21-day ceasefire seems a bit dim at the moment.
Margaret, many thanks for your reporting and that update. VOA UN correspondent Margaret Bishia, live for us from New York. Russia and China are indicating they will support Africa's bid for 2 seats on the UN Security Council with veto power. African leaders are pushing for permanent representation on the Security Council and other reforms. Currently, Africa's 3 non-permanent seats on the Security Council are allocated on a rotating basis for 2-year terms. The U.S., one of the 5 permanent members on the Council, is also expressing openness to having 2 African seats on the Council, but without veto power. This is drawing condemnation from the other permanent members. Here are some views expressed by African leaders.
This year's theme calls on us to act together to advance peace, sustainable development, and dignity. This is a call to stronger multilateral cooperation. But if we are serious about cooperation, then we must act with urgency in fixing and reforming the United Nations and other multilateral institutions. And one fix that we from Africa demand is for the United Nations to embrace democracy in the Security Council by giving 2 permanent seats to Africa with veto power. When I first made this call in my inaugural address in this chamber, I was delighted to hear President Biden also announce that the United States is in favor of this reform. Similarly, when I met President Xi Jinping of China 3 weeks ago, I was delighted to hear that he too is in favor of stronger representation of the interests of developing countries in the Security Council. So, Mr. President, the time to fix this is now.
An institution that excludes 54 African countries with 1.4 billion people, while allowing one nation to veto decisions of the remaining 193 member states in the 21st century, is simply unacceptable. We must urgently seek to make the Security Council representative, inclusive, transparent, democratic, effective, and accountable.
Reform of the UN Security Council. Mr. President, Sweden recognizes the pressing issue of Security Council's legitimacy, equitable representation, and transparency. In a world reshaped by geopolitical realities, true global peace and security hinge on reforms and the rejuvenation of United Nations Security Council and the UN General Assembly.
That was a sampling of African leaders addressing the UNGA Permanent Security Council membership. For analysis on Africa's leaders who have addressed the UNGA, I'm joined live from Princeton, New Jersey by Dennis Matanda, Adjunct Professor of American Politics and International Business at Catholic University. Professor Matanda, first your take on America's support for 2 African seats on the UN Security Council, but without veto power.
Thank you very much for this, Esther. I think we need to look at it from a very simple context. two African countries are going to have an opportunity to be at the forefront as permanent members of the UN Security Council. This is huge. Very much like what happened when Africa became a member of the G20 or the African Union. Now, it brings us to the very second part. There's a very big difference to being a member of the Security Council as a developed or a frontier nation, a nation that is very close to the development stage. In other words, if you are a Sweden, if you are a Finland, if you are Indonesia, if you are Malaysia, if you're one of those countries, it's a very different component if you are an African country. Basically, there are internal challenges in the 55 member states of the African Union, which is why I've heard many people saying we shouldn't necessarily focus on just individual African countries, but take it to the African Union level. Veto power, in my opinion, should be a secondary issue, and the focus should be on the representation. But the third aspect here is the fact that the United States has already supported African countries at the G20. Now it's supporting them at the United Nations Security Council. We should actually see this as a Biden legacy, and this is very interesting to discuss.
I mean, listening to you, Dennis, I think then there's no need to ask what would change if they had the veto powers. Let's move on to what were the key takeaways as far as you're concerned from African leaders who have already addressed a UNGA.
You know, I'm very anxious about, for example, which countries they will choose. For example, are they going to choose the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is large and it's got all these member states around it? Are they going to choose South Africa? Are they going to choose Nigeria with its over 200 million people? All these questions are going to be very fractious. In my opinion, the issues now should be taken to a certain body, which is the United Nations of Africa, which is the African Union. In my opinion, these are more fundamental. The challenge that you have with these African decisions is that if you listen to all those people that spoke, Sierra Leone, Kenya, and Malawi, all those are English-speaking countries. Well, what about the Spanish-speaking countries? There are some in Africa. What about the French-speaking countries? What about the Arab-speaking countries? How do you get a truly representative African country? Also, which country can actually claim to speak for the whole of Africa? Those are some of the aspects that we need to bring to the table. Thank you.
Very good. Logic there, Dennis. We'll explore this further. Thank you so much. Dennis Matanda is an adjunct professor of American politics and international business at Catholic University. VOA's Peter Claude is in New York this week and had the opportunity to sit down with Kenyan President William Ruto to talk with him about a variety of issues, including his speech at the UN General Assembly and what his message was to the UNGA and to the UN Security Council.
The ravaging war around the world, tensions, conflict, from Ukraine, Darfur, Sudan, DRC, and the failure of the multilateral system, and especially the UN General Assembly, and specifically the UN Security Council. And therefore, there is urgency in reforming the UN Security Council. Number two is the challenge we have about the debt situation, the economic situation globally. And thirdly, climate change and the human capital that exists that we can use to turn the climate change that is ravaging the world into an opportunity for Africa to industrialize, to create jobs, and to decarbonize the whole world.
You were in Haiti.
Yes.
You met the police officers of Kenya.
Yes.
What were your observations, and what did the Kenyan police officers tell you as their president about the challenges they face in Haiti?
My assessment was much more positive than I ever thought. And the reports they gave me indicated that what initially pessimists and critics and people who did not see any hope in Haiti has changed. The airport that had gunfire all over the place now is safe, and there are more flights flying in and out. The palace, which was under siege, is now safe. The National Hospital that had challenges is now in good hands. The National Police Academy that had been overrun by gangs today is training police officers. The port that had challenges, many of the roads. I see a very positive trajectory, and this is the report I got from the Kenyan commanders on the ground and also from the Haitian police. The challenge they have, however, is logistics, more resources, and more personnel.
Will Kenya give it to them?
And what I made, immediately I made the decision that Kenya is going to have another 600 security officers sent to Haiti to add on to the 400 that are already there, 300 next month, and 300 in November. And I am going to mobilize the rest of the global community to make sure that by January, we have 2,500 police officers so that we can execute the mandate that was given to us by the UN resolution setting up the MSS in Haiti.
What is your plan for the youth of Kenya? And how do you react when they said, Mr. President must go, he has not kept his promises, and he has to go?
I have a very clear, elaborate plan on job creation, our housing plan, our digital footprint plan, our plan on export of labor. We just signed a bilateral labor agreement with Austria, where Kenyan young people, the best resource we have, will find jobs in Austria. I came last week from the other week from Germany, doing the same thing, creating opportunities for the young people of Kenya to work in Kenya and to work abroad. I launched Climate Works that is going to hire another 200,000 young people across Kenya on climate action and making sure that we deal with the environmental issues and climate change that is threatening humanity and having significant adverse effects on the people of Kenya, swinging from drought to floods. And that program is now on its way, beginning 1st of October.
That was Kenyan President William Ruto speaking to VOA's Peter Claudie. Still to come, Still to come, in our entertainment report, we'll hear from the talented Ghanaian rapper Gambo. Stay with us.
The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres in March of this year called on member states to eradicate sexual exploitation and abuse from the workplace, support victims, and hold perpetrators and their enablers to account. On this week's episode of Our Voices, we focus specifically on sexual harassment by hearing individuals' testimonies and examine research and analysis by African scholars on the subject of sexual harassment. Join the conversation each week right here on Our Voices.
You're watching VOA's Red Carpet. My name is Jackson Vunganyi. Thank you so much for joining us each week right here on Red Carpet. We bring you the latest in
The U.S. President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, PEPFAR, is a global initiative by the United States government to fight the HIV/AIDS epidemic. It is the world's largest health program aimed at fighting a single disease. The program has helped to increase Zambians' life expectancy from 44 to 68 years. Kathy Short reports from Lusaka.
U.S. Ambassador to Zambia Michael Gonzalez told VOA that over the past 21 years, PEPFAR has spent over $6.7 billion on the development of the Zambian health sector and put more than 1 million Zambians on free life-saving HIV treatment.
Today, Zambians are living longer, healthier lives. 1.2 million Zambians are living healthy lives and they're HIV positive. And 96% of them know their status. They're on treatment. And they're on treatment so effectively that their viral load is so low that it's undetectable. And that means they cannot transmit the virus.
Dr. Duncan Chanda is the Director Clinical Services of the HIV/AIDS program at the University Teaching Hospital, the largest center in Zambia focusing on prevention and treatment of HIV/AIDS. Since 2004, the United States has invested in Zambia through PEPFAR more than $6 billion on the war against HIV and AIDS. Dr. Chanda says the University Teaching Hospital Center is now providing treatment for about 18,000 people living with HIV, the virus that causes AIDS. Dr. Chanda contrasts this situation with the state of affairs in 2006 when HIV diagnosis was perceived as a death sentence.
Once PEPFAR came in, we had a glimmer of hope. And now with the development of various antiretroviral therapies, which PEPFAR made available for free to the Zambian population, we have managed to help a lot of people in terms of clinical treatment.
Emmanuel Makoya is happy that PEPFAR has enabled him to not only access HIV prevention drugs for free since 2022, but other benefits as well, such as cancer screening, male circumcision, and mental health. He mentions the HIV PrEP prevention drug.
Specifically, when I was coming here, I came here for the prevention kits. That was PrEP, and everything else that is offered in the prevention kit. And as I came here, much as I didn't know much about other services, I was also introduced to other services like mental health, skin and STIs, which I accessed myself and benefited from.
Zambia's National AIDS, Sexual Transmission, Infection and Tuberculosis Council is another beneficiary of PEPFAR, which finances and coordinates the country's HIV/AIDS prevention programs. Dr. K.B. Musokotwane is the council's Director General.
We have come a long way with the generous development aid for health that we received from the U.S. government. This is in billions of dollars. Zambia has attained, currently we've got about almost 1.3 million people that are on ARVs. These are being managed in that we have attained the UNAIDS 95% goals that were set.
The United Nations 95-95-95 declaration calls on member states to ensure that 95% of people living with HIV know their HIV status, 95% of people who know their status are receiving HIV treatment, and 95% of people on treatment are virally suppressed. In other words, that the HIV virus in their bodies is brought to a very low level. Last year's visit to Zambia by the United States Vice President Kamala Harris and Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen reinforced the Biden administration's commitment to improving global health. Kathy Short for VOA, Lusaka, Zambia.
It's time for Entertainment Report, and joining us in the studio is VOA digital producer Mike Hove with news on the talented Ghanaian rapper Gambo. Hello, Mike.
Thank you, Esther. I hope you're well. Ladies and gentlemen, Bashir Anan, an award-winning Ghanaian rapper, popularly known by his alias Gambo, is currently in the United States after completing 2 weeks of touring with Nigerian Afrobeat sensation Young John. He's also networking and making music with iconic artists from different parts of the world.
Gambo, a Ghanaian musician who was raised in the South American country Guyana, says he's looking to use his talent and diverse cultural background to shine a brighter spotlight on Afro beats.
I got an album where I'm working on, an Afrobeat album, and everywhere that I've been in, I've touched producers from all parts of the world, different sounds, how they get stuff done, certain things that they say in their songs. So it's maybe to be able to collaborate with anybody in the world.
The 29-year-old artist has been based in the US for months. He's used his time to tour with other African acts while producing music with iconic Americans whose careers have shaped global culture, language, and fashion. Included on that list of artists is Jim Jones, the founder of the renowned Diplomats rap group, also known as Dipset. Their song, titled Drip, was released 2 months ago and has already amassed over 1.2 million views on YouTube.
We met Jim Jones in the studio. So introducing myself, I was like, I won Best New Artist 2022. And then I played him the song that won me that award. And he was looking at the music video. And he was like, yo, this was shot in Ghana? So seeing the video and seeing that this is how we're doing it in Ghana, you know, and the whole drip, you know, Dipset drip, Jim Jones is drip himself. So he was like, nah, man.
Gambo, with the help of Ghanaian actor and comedian Michael Blackson, has seen his career rise to the top of Ghana's music industry.
So Michael Blackson, you know, he built a school, free school in his village, right? Yeah, so he was in Ghana doing, you know, charity work and stuff. And that was in December 2021. So he had an all-white party I got invited to by Street Kid. And then in the party we met, you know, it was, you know, meet and greet, picture taking and that. And then I had this party that I do in December. So I heard that Michael Blackson just pulled up to the party. At the end of the party, he was like, yo, I like your vibe, man. You know, take my number. And he put his phone in my hand. I was like, type your number and text yourself. And that's one thing led to the other, and I'm here. And during that year, I think he shot Coming to America Part 2. Yes. So he was like, there, you're Coming to America. I think last year was when Shaquille O'Neal danced with Michael Blackson. Bro, I was blown, but my phone was blowing up.
Besides using his status to boost Gambo's career, Blackson also financially contributed to his growth and expanded his networks. That led to Gambo attending some of the most prestigious cultural events, including a Grammy Award event where he met Snoop Dogg, a multi-award winning musician, media personality, actor, and entrepreneur.
So being from Ghana, Africa, and actually being in the same room with him, the video that we did when I was like, yo, Snoop, when you come to Ghana, say Aquaba, and he said Aquaba, I was like, yo, everybody in Ghana was going crazy.
Gambo recently released an extended play that featured the song with Jim Jones and his fellow award-winning Ghanaian rapper, Edem. He also teased upcoming music with Snoop Dogg and has been networking with other award-winning musicians, namely Jermaine Dupri, Timbaland, and African stars such as Burna Boy, Rotimi, and Tiwa Savage.
And that's it for entertainment this week, ladies and gentlemen. Esther, back to you.
Thank you, Mike. Be sure to join our entertainment reports every Friday here on Africa 54. And that's our show for today. Be sure to Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, have a great weekend.